Hi everyone, week 3 of Waste Free TV. So I wanted to start off with something that I always intend to say at the end of these lives and I never do. I have put together a zero waste roadmap, which is basically a free guide showing you the tips that I wish I'd have got to start my zero waste journey off properly and make it a little bit less overwhelming. So that's the thing I hear time and time again. People want to get started lowering their waste, but they feel like they don't know what to do first, or they feel like they're going to do the wrong thing. They don't have enough information. So I've put together the guide that I wish that I'd have got, and I hope you guys find it useful. I'm going to link it down below after I finish the live so you can get yourself your own free copy. And it also links through to an online course which I am launching later on this month. I will be doing a live completely dedicated to the content of the course, so you understand what you'll get out of it, and what kind of what the outcomes of the course will be. And I will link that down below as well, but the roadmap links through to the course. So the whole point is that I guess the roadmap is kind of showing you what the course will do in greater detail. So just while I wait a little bit longer to see whether anyone else is going to join live, I thought I would see who's already on the call. So if you are joining me live, please drop me a comment, #live. If you're watching on replay, #replay, and I will get back to you in the next couple of days, depending on when you watch this video. And if you have any thoughts on what I'm discussing, or you want to talk about things that have inspired you on your zero waste journey, please let me know, because I would love to have a look at the sort of stuff that you guys are interested in, and also get myself inspired with the stuff that inspires you. Just before I hopped onto this call, I was looking through the impact that I'm hoping Zero Waste Life will have over the next 12 months. So the official business start date is in June, so we started a year ago, June just gone. And in my head I was like, oh, it would be fantastic to, in the entire year, to work with 1,000 people for an hour. So like if I've worked with someone for an hour, I'll say that is one person that I've shared the zero waste message with. So I've talked about zero waste living, how I do what I do, and how I keep myself going. So I sat down and I started to tally up from June to now how many events I've done, and I was obviously thinking, oh, with 12 months I'll work with 1,000 people, that'd be awesome. And I mean, I haven't got a foolproof method just yet, but I started jotting down the numbers of people that I've seen over the past few months, and I've already got over 1,000. I'm more like 1,400, and that doesn't take into account any digital content. So I'm going to need to have a rethink about that one, set myself a goal that's a bit higher. And I guess I'll let you know when I've decided what I'm going to go for, what the big goal of the next year will be in terms of spreading the message. So yeah, I'm going to move into what I'm going to cover with you guys today. I'm going to talk about the stuff that inspires me, the stuff that has inspired my zero waste journey at the start, the things that have made my journey mine, the things that I tap into when I need a little bit more support, when I need a little bit more guidance, or just want a little bit of fun, just, something to keep me going, to make me think about things in a slightly different way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through different areas of life and explain the content that I use for that kind of area to what's inspired me in the past, or what I continue to dip back into in order to inspire me if I think I need a little bit more excitement in that area, or more focus, or whatever it might be. But just to start off with, I thought it would be a great thing to discuss about how to consume content in a low waste way. So the easiest way is simply, that I find, is to just get stuff from the library. I'm really lucky that I live across the road from a library here in Birmingham, and it's linked to the massive library in the centre of town, so I can just request books. If I can't make it into the centre of town, I can just request books and get them picked up from the small library across the road. And that means that I am not having to buy things, and on the odd occasion that I forget to put my book back in time, then I consider the fine as a donation towards the upkeep of the library. You're also able to request books, so if for whatever reason the book that you want isn't in the library, then you can send a message and say, could you get this one in? Another way to consume content in a low waste way is to use audiobooks. So there are lots of providers where you could actually sign up for a short period of time, a couple of weeks, and get a free trial. So if you've got a book in mind that you want to read, well, I guess you'd be listening to it, then you can use the trial, cancel the trial, or you might decide that actually really works well for your lifestyle, so you might keep it going. Another way is swapping, borrowing from friends. But if you find that you can't get hold of the content that you want on any form, or you don't want to pay for any sort of service, then a good way is to just get the book, get the content that you want, and then minimize the waste afterwards. So by donating it to your library, by donating it to charity, by putting it online, by giving it to a friend, whatever it might be, so that that book doesn't then just sit on your shelf and not be used, not be consumed again. Unless, of course, it is a book that's really changed your life and you do want to keep dipping back into it, in which case you're still getting use out of it, so that's great. So now what I'm going to do is go through sort of different lifestyle areas and talk about content that has inspired me in those areas. I've done this kind of chronologically, so the stuff that I'm starting off with is the stuff that I came across early on in my zero waste journey, and then as I travel throughout the books and the things that I talk about, like the podcast, all of that sort of stuff, it kind of brings me a little bit more up to date in terms of the stuff that I love to read and listen to right now. So the first area is health and beauty. At the start of my journey, I came across Lauren Singer. So my big brother Tom showed me a video of hers where she was showing her whole lifestyle and talking about how she lives zero waste in the middle of New York, and I was like, wow, this is super cool. And also she just looks amazing. So all of her makeup and hair products are zero waste, and she just looks phenomenal. So I was like, wow, if she can produce no waste and look as glamorous as she does, then I want to have a look into her. I want to learn more about her lifestyle. So she has a really brilliant blog, all sorts of videos about how to create your own zero waste products at home, moisturizer, makeup, all sorts of stuff, how to shop zero waste. She is absolutely brilliant and absolutely is an inspiration to me. She also runs her own company where she sells zero waste products, which is really inspiring and fantastic. Another key influencer at the start of my journey was Bea Johnson. She runs a blog called Zero Waste Home, and she also has a book, and I got that book from the library. In her book, she talks about her journey into zero waste living. She talks about her lifestyle. She talks about her family, her parents, what kind of things she got from her parents in terms of zero waste living. And the back part of the book is full of all sorts of different recipes and how-tos. So there's recipes to make your own soy milk, how to make your own reusable period pads, all sorts of different crafts, how-to guides. She's even got like weekly shopping plans, how she plans her meals, and she's in a family of 4, so that sort of stuff's really useful for people who maybe have a bigger family than I do. She is a speaker, so she goes around the whole world and shares her message, and she's just really inspiring. She also has a capsule wardrobe, which was I found really intriguing to look at the clothes that she has and how she styles up so few outfits into so few items into so many different items. You know what I'm trying to say. So few items into so many different outfits. There we go, I got there in the end. Another key area in terms of health and beauty I thought was food. So for me, I love to grow my own food, and this is absolutely a passion that has grown out of my zero waste journey. I had grown stuff before I went zero waste, but not on the scale that I do now, and it was kind of just herbs on the window, that sort of thing. It was the sort of make myself look fancier rather than, okay, there's a purpose to this, I want to cut my plastic, all of that sort of stuff, which is the reason why I do it now. I've got a really massive old book that helps me with gardening. I want to show you the inside of it because it's just wonderful. So I was given this by my grandparents, and it's like an amazing resource of how to grow various different vegetables, fruits, herbs, all about the different seasons. And whilst, yes, I could hop online and find the answer to a lot of the questions that I have around growing food, I actually really love sitting down with this book and working through it and learning stuff that I wouldn't have maybe come across had I just hopped online. So this book, here it is, the title. I don't know where they got it from because they just passed it on to me, but another friend has given me this book, and all of this has come from a charity shop for a couple of pounds. So they're just random gardening books basically, and obviously a lot of the stuff that they say does get covered, same sort of thing, but I just love the feeling of sitting down and having a read with a cup of tea, and getting new tips and things like that. So the next area I'm going to move into is time management. I am a bit of a sucker for time management, for batching tasks, for trying to maximise the amount of stuff I can get into a day in the minimum amount of time. And it was actually my friend who introduced me to this way of working. So before I became full-time with my business, I used to work in a university. And one of my friends who I worked at the university with, her job was to go into schools and colleges and talk to young people about study skills. One of her study skills tactics, I say her, she didn't make this up, like this is out there, anyone can find it, but one thing that she used to share with these young people was the Pomodoro technique, as in Pomodoro tomato, and that's the name of the guy who came up with this technique. Pomodoro technique is all about timing yourself for 25 minutes. You're going to study in those 25 minutes, then have a 5-minute break, then study for the next 25 minutes, 5-minute break, study, break, and then have a longer break of about 20 minutes. So I find this kind of thing really works for me. It really makes me focus because I have that timer, and I know that at the end of that 25 minutes I can have a bit of a breather, I can get a drink, I can go to the toilet, whatever it is, and it just means that I am maximising time spent doing kind of the business admin side of things that I need to do, which then means that I can have time to go away and experiment about zero waste living, so I have more content to share on the blog or on these lives or whatever it is, however it is that I share that content. Another way that I like to plan time, maximise time, is through batching content, like batching my tasks into certain set days. And it was Ashlyn Carter, who runs her own online business, who I came across this method with. So she has a whole heap of videos about time management and how to maximize your time. She has a kid, which I don't have, so I'm like, well, if she can fit everything in and she has a child, I need to take a leaf out of her book and I need to learn from her. So yeah, I was just watching YouTube videos of her and taking on board things that she was saying, and I started to implement it into my life, and I found I had more time because of it. So she's fantastic. The next area I am going to focus on is contribution and spirituality. So the things that inspire me, content, sorry, I thought I lost you then. So I like to meditate every day for about 20 minutes in the morning, and I listen to a woman called Tara Brock. Her content is free and you can get it through Spotify. She also has a website, so if you are getting a lot of value out of her content, you can hop onto her website and donate some money to her. So like I said, 20 minutes. I will either listen to it at home, where I'll just have like 20 minutes to myself, close my eyes and focus on what she's saying, so it's like a guided meditation, or I will listen to her while I'm having a walk. I also have used things like Headspace in the past, which has a subscription fee, but if you do have Spotify, you can get it as part of your Spotify deal as well. And another thing that I like to do in this area is journaling. So I collect scrap bits of paper and make them into new notebooks just by like hole punching the paper and threading some string through it. And then I journal. I try and journal twice a week. I used to try and do it once a day, but I couldn't keep it up basically. So I will journal on a Sunday evening and a Wednesday evening. And my Sunday is kind of planning what I want to get done in the next week. And then Wednesday is just a check-in to see how I'm doing. Whilst most of what I journal about is quite almost like planning, it's strategic, I also have questions that I try and answer while I'm going through that. So it's stuff like, what did I really enjoy from the last week? What did I learn from the last week? What do I want to do less of? What do I want to do more of? And these questions I have adopted from various other entrepreneurs who've inspired me. So one is Michelle Stonehill and one is Taylor Slango. What I'd say is, if you're wanting to start journaling, for me this was a really great way to go, to find some people that I find inspiring and figure out what kind of questions they ask themselves. And then I could just jot down those questions, and then each week I can go back to those same questions and see where I'm at. And then having a look back over my answers means that I'm able to see improvement, and I'm able to see breakthroughs or times that I was kind of struggling and what I've been learning along the way. The next area is budgeting and wealth, and this comes up a lot with zero waste. So people are always like, oh, zero waste living is really expensive, I can't afford to switch to it. And there's kind of two sides to this coin, excuse the money pun, in that there is a certain amount of, especially in supermarkets, there's a certain element where it is cheaper to buy the things that are wrapped in plastic, which is ridiculous. So, you know, when someone's on a tight budget, they are going to pick the apples that are in a bag because they're cheaper than the loose apples. I understand that completely. And you've got to do what you've got to do. What I say is, for me, zero waste living has saved me money because I've switched to reusables. So I've got reusable coffee cups and water bottles, which means that I don't buy bottled drinks anymore. But I also have reusable sanitary items. So I'm not spending that kind of money each month. I've got stuff I just reuse, and I also have quite a thrifty mindset where I will try and reuse things before I recycle them. Things that have helped me in terms of budgeting, there is one chef who is fantastic. So she's Jack Monroe. She runs a blog called The Bootstrap Cook, and she's got numerous cookery books as well. And the thing that I really like about that website is you can go on there and type in an ingredient that you have, and it will pull up lots of different recipes using that one ingredient. So for instance, one week I had loads of beetroots and I was like, I have no idea what to do with all this beetroot. And I also don't want to go and buy loads of ingredients to use up this beetroot. So I went on her website and she had like recipes for beetroot burgers, which is what I made, and beetroot meatballs. They weren't really meatballs, they were vegan. But I thought that was fantastic and a really good resource. And the other thing that I love about her site is that at the end of each recipe, she will break down how much that costs. And it's usually ridiculous, stuff like 12p, 11p. Because what she does is she will take into account how much of each ingredient you'll use, how much you'd have left over for another recipe. So Bootstrap Cook, she's fabulous. And although it's not zero waste, like that's not her sole purpose is like budgeting. But she's got that mindset of using up what you've got and yeah, making do with what's in the cupboard, which is fantastic. Other areas of sort of budgeting and wealth. I started off my zero waste journey and I was bad at budgeting. I'll put my hands up and say I was really awful at it. I just was that sort of person who was living paycheck to paycheck, not really bothering about savings. Like, I'd save, that would be nice, but if I didn't manage it one month, no problem. If I needed to dip into it, no problem. And then I quit my job and I had to have a complete switch around in terms of my money beliefs. And one thing that really helped with this is a blog called Mr. Money Moustache. Yeah, I think I've got that around the right way. He is like the ultimate budgeter. He's someone who managed to retire at 30 because he had enough savings and passive income. And I found that really inspiring, and I've just had a realisation of how I'm not that far from 30 now. And he retired by 30. Anywho, so the thing that really inspired me about his journey was how he managed to cut back in so many areas and how he managed to save things. So what that led me to do was to go through all my monthly bills and think, like, do I really need this? Can I get it cheaper? Can I search around for a better deal? And that cut back on my spending. So then in turn, I was saving money. Maybe I was spending more money on food shopping, for instance, because I was buying that stuff that was zero waste. And then it would balance out, but I'd actually be better off because of it. So I was spending a couple of pence more on a weekly shop than I normally would, but I was actually saving a lot more money because I'd been looking into my bills and how to cut back. The other person who I found inspiring in this area was Michelle McGann. I hope I've said her name right, but she had a full year of no spend. I think she also did a New Year's resolution like I did, where she just said, okay, I'm not going to spend any money on anything that is non-essential for the full year and see how much I save. I haven't read her book, but I have read an article that she wrote about her journey. And when I was running an event a couple of weeks ago, I was asking people about their zero waste journeys and what sort of things they were up to. And one woman said that she'd followed this method and she'd managed to save 30k in 1 year, which was just insane because she managed to save money that they would have otherwise been spending on a car. They would have bought the car, but they were like, no spend year. And they were buying everything secondhand and they managed to save 30k. And I was like, damn, I need to do that too. So yeah, Michelle has a book and a lot of articles that you can read online as well. Next area is relationships. So one book that has been really beneficial in terms of relationships, I mean like relationships and friendships, is this book here, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. So yeah, there's a lot of content online about this book as well. So YouTube videos and blogs where they've kind of extracted information out about it. But I really love this book. I think I first read it when I was about 20. And one of the things that Stephen talks about in this book is having a personal mission statement and a couple mission statement, and writing that couple mission statement together so you're able to kind of plan your future and check that your goals are aligning, which I really, really love. And that's something that we have done. And I think that's so great because I have a mission statement for the business. Like, I know how many people, well, I'm working on my goal right now, like I was saying at the start of this. I know how many people I want to work with within the year, like all of that sort of stuff. So why don't I have it for the rest of my life? Another awesome thing he talks about in this book is starting with the end in mind. So this is going to get a bit morbid, but he makes you imagine your funeral and think about what you'd want people to talk about at your funeral. And he's like, are they going to say that she was really nice, she was fine, like, or do you want something much more emotive? And if you want something more emotive, how are you going to get that? How are you going to make that happen? How are you going to have actual impact on the people that you live and work with and touch with your work? Which I thought was such a great way to think of things and really changed my mindset. So, things that have inspired me in my career. I work for myself and I love what I do. I've absolutely found my passion, but when I started my zero waste journey, that wasn't the case. I was working in a job that was fine, but I didn't love it. One thing that I found really helpful when I was working in that job and also transitioning into working for myself was doing a personality quiz, the Myers-Briggs personality quiz, which you may well have heard of. And what it does is it gives you letters that are related to your personality type, and then it sort of breaks down what kind of person you are. Now, when I first did this, I kind of took this the wrong way, and I was like, oh, okay, lovely. It's told me that I'm an ENFP. It's told me I'm quite outgoing. It's told me I'm a little bit scatty. I like doing things for fun. I'm quite adventurous. Excellent, that sounds great. And I kind of just, yeah, I took that as like, brilliant, that's me. Don't need to work on me at all. Like, don't need to look at the bad parts of that personality. You know, the fact that being a bit scatty means you're a little bit unreliable, means that you will, you know, not get back to people, you'll let friends down, all of that sort of stuff. I just kind of like left that. Whereas now what I'm taking it as is, it's almost like, yeah, it tells me the good bits, it tells me the bad bits, it tells me the areas of improvement, areas of focus. So yeah, I'm kind of using it as, I guess, a way to set goals, a way to focus in on the areas that I should improve on. The final area, in terms of what has inspired me on the zero waste journey, is all about emotion and meaning. So I was recommended to read the book Stuffocation by one of my friends and my auntie. And Stuffocation is a book about minimalism and about our obsession with stuff. So at the start of the book, it talks about consumerism as a whole and how it's grown and how we get marketed to so that we buy more things, how things have planned obsolescence, so they'll break, so we'll need to buy more things. All of these different stories. And then the author of the book goes around and visits different people who have changed their lifestyles to live with less. So there was one story in this book, well, a couple stuck with me. The first one was that there was this guy who was living in an apartment, I can't remember where, but his apartment was stacked high with papers because he was trying to take this case to court. So he was gathering all the evidence he could. and he was basically a hoarder. So if you were to go into his house, he was stacked floor to ceiling with all this paper and all his other stuff. And a fire started in the flat above his. It was something really small, like a cigarette, got dropped from the top balcony down to where he was living. And because his flat had so much stuff in it, it set alight so quickly and just went straight through the flat. Everyone was fine. So the guy that was living in the flat was fine, the guy that was above, everybody else in the building was safe. And I believe that the fire was actually put out completely fine and the building was still okay. But the point that was made was how dangerous it is to have that much stuff. And I'd never ever really considered it like that before. And whilst I won't claim to be a minimalist at all, although my house doesn't have heaps and heaps of stuff compared to what it used to do before reading this book, I won't say I'm a minimalist, but that book really changed my way of thinking around stuff. And two other people that he interviewed in the book, they are called the minimalists, so that's the name that they go by, and they are I'm gonna link them down below because I can't quite remember their first names. Something like Nicodemus is the last name. Jason, maybe? Ryan and Jason, I'm not sure that sounds quite right. Anyway, these two guys, they were both working in really super successful corporate jobs, and they got to about 35, I think it was. They'd been best friends all their life, and they sort of realised that they weren't happy. So they had everything that they thought they should have. They had the cars, they had the fancy house, they'd go on holiday lots. Their house was full of nice stuff, TVs, they had plenty of clothes, but deep inside they weren't happy. And one of them, first of all, decided that what he'd do is he would pack up everything he owned, put it into boxes in one room of his house, and he'd only go and get those things when he needed them. So he packed up everything this one evening, popped it all in the one room, and then in the evening he was like, right, I need a toothbrush, I need my toothpaste, and I need a towel. So we'd go to the boxes and he'd find those three things and he'd take them back out into his house. And then he'd be like, okay, now I need pyjamas. I'll go and find the pyjamas and come back. And what he realised by living that way for, I think it was 21 days, something like that, that there was so much stuff that was still in all those boxes that he hadn't even touched. And then he was like, right, I don't need to live with all of that stuff. And I think I don't think he even went through the rest of the stuff. He just donated that all. And then he was telling his friend about what he'd sort of experienced, and his friend was like, well, I've got to get in on this as well. So the two of them started living started living minimally, and they now run a blog and a podcast about minimalism as a whole. And the reason why I love their journey so much and why I think it really links with zero waste living is because everything they do, they're trying to minimize the impact that they have. So in terms of, they want to focus on their finances and make sure they are getting they're budgeting as much as possible. So everything's minimal in terms of it's not all crazy and it's not all, mental when they look at their budget. Their stuff, everything's really considered, and they've really thought about whether they want those things in their house. And that does transfer really nicely into zero waste and making sure you're not making wasteful decisions and you're not just buying stuff for the sake of it when you're not really thinking about the full cycle of, do I need this item? What will I do when I finish with this item? Was this item made in the best possible way? So those guys have really inspired my journey, and I love the fact that you can kind of get their content in all sorts of different ways. So they have their podcast, but they've also been in a film which is just called The Minimalists, and it's just a really interesting insight into that kind of lifestyle and how to live with a bit more purpose and a bit more meaning. So those are the different areas of my lifestyle, I guess, and I've gone through and sort of given you some kind of content that has shaped my view around those areas. I'd really love to know your thoughts, if you have anything different that you want to add in. And yeah, thank you for joining me so much. If you want your free copy of the Zero Waste Roadmap, I'm going to link it down below, and I'll also link through to the Zero Waste course. But thank you so much for joining me. Have a lovely evening, and I will speak to you next week. Bye!